Hello and welcome to the live stream of today. Sorry for being a bit later. We had some technical issues going on. I am Pim, and I will be the moderator of today's live stream. And today we will be going mudlarking in the River of Thames. But before I introduce the local who's going to do this with us, I'd like to say that it is possible to interact with us, with me and the local, via the chat. And if you could do so, then I can also relay the questions, comments, or remarks that you have to the host of today. Aside from that, I would also like to note that it is possible to subscribe. If you are looking on withlocals.tv, there is a input box just below the videos feed where you can leave your email address, and then with every new live stream that we have, we can send you an email stating we are live now. If you're looking on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, you can also hit the like, subscribe, or follow buttons over there to be notified. Also, if you want to see the full schedule, you can go to withlocals.tv if you're not already on there. And from there on, you can see which live streams are all upcoming. And for today, we have 3 live streams in total. This one first starting with mudlarking through the history of London's River Thames, together with Caroline, which I will introduce in a few moments. Later today, we will have a virtual journey through the Italian proverbs and folk songs with host Daniel. And later today, we also have the Abbey Road and the Beatles tours with Chloe. So if you're interested in them, please tune in. You can see them on screen right now. So that's the schedule for today. And the last part before I will introduce the host is that it is possible to also support the current local by donating. And that is possible via the link in the description or with the orange button, the pink button, I mean, on withlocals.tv. Now let's go to the more interesting stuff. Today you will meet Caroline, and who will tell you about mudlarking through the River Thames. Caroline, how are you doing over there?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Brilliant. That's a good start.
Yes, indeed. So how are you doing?
Yes, a little bit grey here in London today. Yesterday was much nicer. I went down onto the foreshore, took some photos, which hopefully you'll be able to see in a moment.
Well, we're excited to go watch them. I'm hoping that we can indeed see them. Yeah, so we're going to go mudlarking through the River Thames today. Could you maybe explain to us a bit what mudlarking is? I mean, I've never heard of the word itself before, but what is it like? Yeah, what do you do then?
Yes, so mudlarking has historical roots. It started mainly as a necessity for poor people who were mostly during Victorian times, mostly children and women who needed to find extra income to support themselves would go down into the mud of the river and scavenge useful things that they could sell. This might be discarded bits of coal, old rope, any metal that they could find to sell for scrap, anything that they could sell to make a little bit of extra money to feed themselves. So that's the historical roots, is where the word mudlarking comes from. It's literally someone who larks about in the mud. Nowadays, it is a hobby, and there's a society of mudlarks, and you can just go down to your local river and have a look around in the mud for whatever might be lying around. And it's amazing some of the things that you can find in the River Thames.
Yeah, I'm really excited because, yeah, as you mentioned, like it started out as a thing to earn some bit more money, and now it's more of a hobby. So, like, what kind of
Yes,
things do you find nowadays? I mean, I can imagine some things from very old, but also some things
yes.
from more
So
recent.
it's possible to find up to 200,000 years worth of history on the River Thames. So this ranges from very early Paleolithic hand axes right up to modern plastic and discarded rubbish from today. So there's a whole range. It spans the whole of human evolution, basically.
Okay, that sounds really interesting indeed. Let's see. We have no questions. We have one person at least that we know that is in the chat joining in.
Great.
Welcome, Jada. I have one question for you, Caroline. I think we have two devices running on your where you are at. Could you
Yeah.
please mute one of them so we don't have the echo? Because I think we have an echo.
Yes, I've been trying to get rid of this. I've muted one.
Okay. I think it's better now indeed. Yeah. So then we also have another comment coming in from Emmy who says, "Oh wow, super interesting that you can still find such old things there." I think that's really indeed well what she mentioned. So how would you go about explaining us a bit more about mudlarking? Are we going to see some stuff, or did you take pictures? Like, what is the most interesting piece that you found?
Unmute.
Yeah.
Oh, can you hear?
Yeah, now we can hear you indeed.
Okay. Yes, so, oh dear, there goes my window.
Yeah, we don't have the video, but we can still hear you right now. So
You can.
yeah. Okay. So for all the viewers, we just lost at least the video connection with Caroline. We're also now switching over that we can't hear her. So we're trying to figure out if we can maybe fix the audio and video for her so we can continue with this live stream. For the viewers, are there any people who actually joined in with mudlarking kind of experience or had any experience with this? I mean, I know that when I was younger, we had this metal detector, which is not really the same, of course. But then we went over the beaches to try and find some very expensive stuff, which we usually didn't. But what is your experience with this? Has anyone had an experience like this? And if so, please let me know in the chat, and then we can maybe discuss this when we get Caroline back into the live stream. Furthermore, if there's any people that I think we have a bit of audio feedback from Caroline, but we don't see her yet. But if there's anyone that wants to share their experience with mudlarking, please do so in the chat, and then we will discuss that when Caroline comes back. Let's see if we can get Caroline back on the screen. Not yet, I know. No, indeed. So for the schedule later today, we will go on a virtual journey through Italian proverbs and folk songs, which I think will be a very interesting experience. Host Daniel will then, learn us more about the Italian music and the folk songs that they made over there. That will start at 7 p.m. CET, which is in about 6.5 hours from now. So for all the viewers that want to tune in, feel free to do so. It will also be streamed on withlocals.tv and on our YouTube channel again. And that will take approximately 1 hour. And after that, we will go on a Beatles tour. So for all the Beatles fans, or if you know people that are Beatles fans, please let them know. Because this will be a very interesting live stream where Chloe will tell you all about Abbey Road and the Beatles, and you will probably learn some facts that you didn't know before. So feel free to join in when that live stream is, and that will be in, let's see, 7.5 hours from now. So if that's what you want to do, please join today. Yes, I think we have a video feedback from Caroline. There she is again. Yes. Hello, we can see you, Caroline.
Hey, I'm back.
Welcome back.
I'll try and tell you as much as possible before I potentially disappear again.
That's cool.
So yes, how I got into mudlarking, basically I started walking along the Thames a few years ago, and I started to notice all these interesting things on the floor. Started picking up a few bits and trying to ID them, and then I discovered that you need to get a mudlarking license just for the bit in central London, and there was loads of different societies and Facebook groups, a whole community of people out there that do this. And yeah, so everyone has their own interests, collects their own specific things. Some people really like buttons, some people really like collecting bits of pottery. My personal favourite, a little bit macabre, I like to collect teeth. And so I've got quite a collection of animal teeth now.
Teeth. Oh yeah, I didn't hear it correctly, but teeth in there. What kind of what's the most interesting tooth you found?
A few balls tusks. Uh, there's mostly sheep, goat, and cow and pig bones in the Thames. And this is because during medieval times, the butchers were situated near the Thames, and when they finished with the animal carcasses, they would just throw all the waste into the river. And so all the bones that you find there are probably about 500 years old. And there's so many that you can find. I don't know if I can share my screen with you to show you some of what I found yesterday.
Let's see if we can. I see we see your screen right now.
Right.
Let's see your collection. In the meantime, I have a few comments from people. Sharif mentioned, I've never heard of it. Sounds like a scavenger hunt about mudlarking. We have Ahmed, I hope I pronounced your name correctly, who mentions, sounds very interesting. Curious what kind of things they can find nowadays. And also he mentions that he found a bicycle once in our local river and it was in pretty good condition. It's also really nice to find, of course. Then we have Tom, who mentioned, I did the metal detector thing as well when I was young. Although we only found beer caps, it was very excited to do it. Yeah, I can only agree with that, Tom. I quickly for Caroline, once you dropped out, I mentioned that I did this when I was younger. So that's also what
Brilliant.
Tom mentioned. We have another one question more from Emmy. What do you need to do to get a mudlarking license?
Okay, so if you go to the Port of London Authority website, which I shall share the page now.
Let's see. I think we got something. We just saw. I think there we go. The website indeed.
Yeah. So anywhere between Teddington and the Thames Barrier in London, you need a special permit for, and this is because mudlarking has become so popular now. They need to regulate it in some way. Now, most rivers in the UK you don't need a license for. It's only for this stretch because it is so chock full of fines. They want to have a way of recording what is found, and this is a means of regulating a bit more. So on this webpage, you'll see that it's a 3-year license, or you can get a monthly license, and so it doesn't really cost too much more to get a 3-year license if you're going to be there regularly. But yes, this is regularly policed through the Port of London Authority. They do ask people if they see them on the foreshore to prove that they have a license.
Okay, I think this this answers Emmy her question. I think it was Emmy your question. Yeah. Oh, and I think we see your collection here right now, right?
Yeah. So this is what I found just yesterday. So you can see there's a selection of stuff on the left-hand side. I don't know if you can see my little cursor, but you can see there's a selection of redware. Below here, this green glaze stuff is medieval. This little bit of black stuff I'm hoping is Roman, a bit of finished ware. Here we've got some 16th, 17th century salt glaze jugs. Down here you see clay pipe stems. And then you've got the more modern blue and white, including some Delftware, who were copying the Dutch style at this time in the 1750s. And we've also got modern Victorian blue and white ware. Here you can see my collection of teeth, which I picked up yesterday. So we've got some pig teeth, a horse tooth, and some sheep and cow teeth here. We go along, you can see a close-up. There's that bit of potential Roman there. Very
You
exciting.
found all
Hoping.
of this, Caroline, in one day.
Yeah, this was just in half an hour I found this, just in a very small area next to Cannon Street Station. So this shows how much is down there. This is without even looking properly. This is just scattered on the surface.
Oh, that's really a lot. Because, like mentioning that you were scattering the surface, we also have a question from Ahmed, who mentions, Caroline, do you look around the riverbanks or actually get in the water with in the shallow ends? I would suppose the currents can be pretty strong.
Yes, so that's obviously one of the hazards you have to look out for when down on the foreshore. The Thames has one of the largest rises and falls of any city river, a height of 7 meters in difference between high tide and low tide. So the Thames flows out into the sea at the North Sea, and at low tide there is a wide area of foreshore that is dry, but you can get down and you don't need to get in the water. But you do need to be aware when the tide turns, because it does come up quite high. People have been cut off in the past and needed to be rescued.
Wow. Yeah, that's
Yes,
then it
people
gets
don't realise that the
scary.
Thames is a tidal river.
Yeah, that's something that I didn't know of before. But that's also good to know that it's not just grabbing stuff; it's also dangerous in some ways if you don't pay enough attention.
Yes, so other hazards can be slips and falls, because obviously when the tide goes down there's lots of mud remaining, it can be very slippery. Access to the foreshore can be a bit patchy in places. The access points are often quite historic in their own right, some dating back to medieval periods, they may have worn down. And then there's natural hazards such as sewage still enters the Thames, you have to be careful. And also rats carry virus disease, so you have to be careful to wash your hands after touching anything.
Yeah, that's something that we all need to take into account when we're going mudlarking. I have a question from myself actually. What's the most interesting piece that you found? I mean, yeah, this you're now showing
Ooh.
pieces. Is this also from yesterday?
Yeah, this from yesterday with my teeth.
Yeah, for the teeth collection, of course.
Yep, I have a big tin. It's like an old chocolate box tin upstairs, and it's where I keep all the teeth. And at Christmas, I like to play a trick on people and offer them a chocolate from the tin, and of course, it's just full of teeth, and people scream.
Sounds more like something for Halloween.
Yeah. Oh, here's one of the oldest things you can find on the Thames. There's a little fossil. Frequently, fossils come up. Typically of seashells. You also get belemnites, fossil ferns. Most excitingly, pieces of mammoth tusk have been found in the past, and woolly rhinoceros. So it goes to show what history there is. That's going back several 100,000 years. These are my pictures taken on the Thames yesterday to show. So this is a section of foreshore on the north bank of the Thames near Cannon Street Station. You can see there's various revetments that hold the tide back. And this is Cannon Street Bridge. This shows you typically what's on the foreshore. If you look here, you can see hundreds of bones. All of here's bones everywhere. If I stopped to pick up every bone, I'd be there forever.
Caroline, how do you like select which one to take? I mean, you see hundreds of bones. I don't think you take all
Oh
hundred of
yes,
them.
now this is the problem, what to take. And of course, when I first started, I just wanted to take everything. So you soon have to become selective and take what you find interesting. I mean, I'm an archaeologist, and because of all the bones I found in the Thames, I have trained in zoo archaeology at Sheffield University. So bones are very interesting to me, and mainly because I found them on the Thames. That's how I got into archaeology. And so I try and leave as much as possible, and I've sort of specialised in the teeth. I mean, other mudlarkers prefer to collect clay pipes, or they might be into buttons. It's amazing what you can find on the foreshore. I mean, along with other hazards, there's still a lot of World War II bombs out there, and grenades, live bullets still. So that's another potential hazard when you're down on the foreshore.
Yeah, no, don't pick anything just up within a split second. I
Yes,
have a
always be
few.
careful of the metal objects.
Yeah, you don't want to have a live grenade in your hand while mudlarking.
Yes, one of my
Um,
fellow mudlarks did find a live grenade last year, and
wow.
it was safely um, uh, disposed of in a controlled explosion. And even though it looked so old and corroded, it gave quite a big boom when it was blown up.
Yeah, I can imagine. Indeed. Let's
Here
go
we
quickly
have the
to the
shards
chat for
here.
a second, Caroline, because we have a question from Ahmed again.
Okay,
If you find anything of historic value, would you need to hand it in to the authorities, or is it
yes.
finders keepers?
So this is where the treasure laws come in. So anything that is older than a hundred or couple hundred, I think it's 150 years old now, it has to be declared. And you can register that with the Museum of London and British Museum finds liaison officers, the details of which are on the Port of London Authority website. And they will decide if something is of historical importance that might need to be accessioned by a museum, in which case you're often compensated, and they'll decide if something is classed as treasure. So normally anything that is gold is classed as treasure, certain other precious metals, rarity, and coins, if they're of a certain type, if you find even 3 coins, it gets declared as hoard and therefore treasure. So yeah, there's lots of different rules. So anything that you suspect is either valuable or historically valuable should be declared.
Okay, that's good to know. Like, because I was wondering myself. Let's say I want to go mudlarking. I can't go mudlarking because you need the permit license for it.
Mhm.
But is it like that? I take it you have one because you are
Yes,
mudlarking, of course. But could I then go with you mudlarking because you have a license? Am I then also allowed to go mudlarking or not?
you would be welcome to accompany me, but you wouldn't be able to pick up anything for yourself. Uh, I could pick things up for you and show you and tell you about them and their history, but you wouldn't be able to things up for yourself. You would need a separate license for that.
Ah, okay, that's good to know. So, it would be a shame that if I go mudlarking with you and I find a very valuable piece, then I can't even take it myself. But that's
And
what
also,
the
if you're
license is
out of
for.
London, if you're from another country, you have to bear in mind that for anything that's older than 50 years old, you need a proper export license if you're to take it out the country.
Oh,
And this is to stop smuggling of antiquities. So it might seem a bit draconian, but it is to try and ensure that all historic objects are kept within the right country.
yeah, but are there no difficulties in then finding out how old is something that you found? I mean, I can find something and I think it's 2 years old, but it could be 200 years old, for instance.
Again, this is practice, and you start to get an eye for what looks old, because sometimes when everything's covered in mud, it all looks the same. So if I go back here, there's been some really good little slides created that show you what kind of so this is the pottery. So this shows you various Roman pottery and then medieval stuff. You can see some of the green glaze stuff that I had in my collection. And then this is the Tudor and Stuart. There's that Delft ware coming in from the Netherlands. And then you've got Georgian heading up to Victorian modern stuff. So there are various guides. Oh, This is a good one for Halloween. This is one of my favourite pictures that a mudlarker has found. They found a glass eye in the mud staring back at them. Very, very creepy.
Oh, and that is also like looking up in this way when you found it. That's really, really strange. I can imagine.
Here we've got some pictures of those Stone Age tools that these have all been found on the Thames, these examples here, and are now in the British Museum. So you can see there's some very early human history that can be found.
But that also makes it exciting, of course, to go there. To one day
Oh,
probably
definitely.
find something.
Find something either very old or very valuable. Here's one of the most valuable pieces that's ever been found in the river. Again, this is in the British Museum and is known as the Battersea Shield. And you can see the amazing Celtic art from the Latine Iron Age period. And this was found down near Battersea Bridge, and it's thought that it was deliberately posited there as an offer to the river gods.
And what's the price of this? Well, price. There's probably not a
Uh,
price for it, maybe, but
it would probably never be sold, but the value I should imagine would be in the millions for this.
wow, wow. Okay, that's really expensive. Yeah.
And of course, you occasionally get the more gruesome finds. So here we have the top of a skull that was found, and this skull actually dates to about 5,600 years ago. So this is a Bronze Age person, either early Bronze Age, late Neolithic. Obviously, find any human bones on the Thames, it has to be reported to the police, and they will examine the bones and make sure they are of a historic period and not from a modern murder case.
Yeah, because did that happen? Oh, I probably happened, but have you heard any stories of people like going mudlarking and then finding something they think is really old, but then it's not, and then they have to, yeah, get the police in that case?
Yes, sadly, a child's skull was found, and that was a relatively recent disappearance from about 20 years ago or so. Um, so, but modern bones tend to look very different to old bones. So the more recent bones will look cleaner, whiter, whereas old bones tend to go quite a dark brown after a couple hundred years. So, and there's another discovery here. Now, this guy was discovered by Mo Letland whilst they were excavating for a new sewer. And this shows a guy who's dated to about 15th century, and it's thought that he possibly got trapped in the mud whilst doing whatever his trade was. Maybe he was a fisherman, maybe he was an ancient mudlarker. But you can see from the position that he fell in, he must have stuck in the mud, fell, drowned quickly, and was then covered up by mud and then rediscovered years later.
Yeah,
Now, what was
okay.
unusual about this skeleton is he still had leather boots on, these knee-high leather boots. So we know that he probably wasn't murdered because these boots would have been very valuable and whoever killed him would have taken them. So it's most likely this person died in an accident and no one found out what happened to him.
Yeah, that's like because if you found something like this, and then with the story behind it, you can kind of reimagine what happened, sort of.
Yeah,
Let's quickly
we
take a
have
look
his boots.
at the chat
There's his
again,
boots there.
Caroline.
Sorry?
We have Emmy asking, how often do you go mudlarking? Is it a weekly hobby?
I'd love to go down every week if I can. I live in North London. It takes about an hour by bus for me to get down onto the foreshore. Yesterday was the first time I'd been since before the pandemic lockdown, which started in early March. Before then, I hadn't been down to the foreshore since I think November last year was the last time. So I do try and go at least 3 or 4 times a year. But I know some people who live closer who go every single day. And there's people that have their own YouTube channels that you can search out and you can see what they find on a daily basis.
Yeah, because I can imagine, like, if you yesterday found so much already, like if you would go every day, then you
That's
would have to
it.
be very selective or have a very big house.
Yes. And some people do devote entire rooms to their collections. I'm just going to try and find you. There was an exhibition last year. Ooh, where's my Mudlarking?
In the meantime, I can probably ask you another question. Kim has the question: how long have you been mudlarking, Caroline?
So I started going down on the foreshore about 10 years ago. Back then, you didn't need a license. That was brought in about 4 years ago. So you could find things just by doing an eyes only search, and that was allowed. Whereas now you need a license, and the license allows you to dig in certain areas and to metal detect as well. So 10 years ago was my first time, but I started going more regularly and getting my license about 4 years ago.
Okay, then Kim, you know it. 4 years ago, and she started with a permit license, and a bit before that, just casually. I think Sharif had the question: can you take tourists and visitors mudlarking with your license? I think we already went over this a bit, right, Caroline?
Yeah, so if a tourist, you can either to day pass to have a look officially, or you can find possibly a local tour group. There are regularly tours of the Thames. I recommend, um, especially in October, which is September and October is the Totally Thames month, where there's lots of festivals that celebrate mudlarking. I should just bring up the Thames Discovery Programme website here. So this is a really good page to follow. If you're going to be in London for any significant period of time, you can volunteer with them. They go out and they survey archaeological buildings and surfaces that still survive. As I mentioned before, there's still a lot of medieval jetties and wharves that survive. The oldest structure on the Thames is actually 6,000 years old and was found near Vauxhall, in front of the MI6 building. That's the building that gets blown up in James Bond. So they found some timbers, about 6 timbers that date to the Neolithic period. So that's 6,000 years ago. So there are structures still in the Thames that are really ancient. You can get Saxon fish traps still surviving, and all sorts of structures associated with boat building and breaking down of boats. But there's still a lot that gets surveyed, and this group, the Thames Discovery Programme, do regular work, and they have regular tours as well.
Okay, thanks for that information, Caroline. Then in the meantime, I hear that we got a donation from Reinoud.
Oh,
So
thank
that's
you.
really nice. Thank you, Reinoud, for that. Also, a reminder for everyone else: if you would like to donate, Caroline, feel free to do so at withlocals.live.
I'm saving up to get a good, um, as well as my next permit, which runs out later this year. I'm saving up to get a good metal detector. So any donations will go towards that, and then hopefully I'll have some really exciting finds to show you in the future.
That's really good to know. So every donation that you make to Caroline will go to her metal detector. So if you want to help her save up for that, feel free to do so with the pink button beneath the live stream or with the link in the description. Let's see, we have a few more questions, I think. Ahmed had another question. Has the course of the Thames been changed over time due to urban expansion and weathering?
Yes, so when the Thames, before the first humans settled, the Thames was much wider, and it was much shallower because of it being wider. And the south of the Thames was very marshy, consisted of many islands. And so over the years, when the Romans first settled here, the first possible point was near London Bridge, and that was an area where it was deep enough for their boats to moor, but shallow enough for them to span the Thames for bridge. And so that's where the Roman city of Londinium grew, and they were the first people to start vetting and draining the land on the south near Southwark. So they started draining the marshland and expanding from there. And ever since then, successive sort of people that have settled in London have added to and revetted the river more. So the river has got narrower, but therefore deeper and more dangerous over the years. So the course still runs pretty much the same since the last probably 6,000 years, but it has changed in the character as it's been revetted and the land drained around.
Okay, that's. I think that answers Ahmed's question, and it's also nice to see that you know that this kind of information. But that's also maybe as a mudlarker necessary in this case.
Well,
We
yes,
have
knowing which areas were settled by different people gives a clue as to what you might find in the river nearby. So the Roman area is where the modern city of London is. So that's the area that stretches from Tower Bridge to Waterloo Bridge. And then the Saxon area that was settled after the Romans left goes from Waterloo Bridge to Westminster Bridge. And so that gives you an indication as to what type of things you might find in the river nearby. And again,
different.
historical maps showing certain industries like glass blowing or potters, tanneries. Again, you'll find objects associated with those trades near those sites. So it does help to know a little bit of history about the Thames.
Yeah, so you know what you can possibly find where when mudlarking.
Definitely.
We have another question from Goda. When did you first do this, and what was attractive about the activity that kept you hooked?
So again, about 10 years ago was the first time I went down onto the river, and straight away I was shocked by how much there was to be seen just on the surface. And I think what gets me hooked is pulling something fresh out the mud and knowing that you're the first person, possibly in a couple hundred, maybe even a couple thousand years, to hold that object. And when you find something that's really personal, like a button, it makes you wonder about the person who lost it, how they lost it, what was their lives like. And it's those little stories that go with the objects that got me really hooked.
That sounds really interesting indeed. In the meantime, I have two more donations coming in.
Oh, lovely.
One
Thank you
donation
so much.
from Emmy, and another one from Tomasini, if I pronounce it correctly, who mentions super nice how passionate you share your stories, and I
Oh,
can
thank
only agree
you.
with that.
In the background, the photo I'm showing is from an exhibition from last year, and this shows other people's mudlarking collections. There's a big exhibition just inside this old warehouse. Here you can see the people at the exhibition, and lots of different mudlarkers donated their collections and gave talks. And you can see here there's a selection of pottery that's just been picked up and put on the floor for people to look at. But some of the collections that people have are amazing. I love these medieval floor tiles that have been found. So some of these may have come from medieval palaces.
Wow, that's yeah. Look, and they just found like the entire tile then, or
Yes,
does it also
I
happen
found
often that they
myself a
reconstruct
fragment.
them?
Certain places throughout from the 13th century until the 17th century, lots of kings and queens had their palaces on the Thames because it was easier to commute by a river. And so you've got places like Greenwich Palace, which is where Queen Elizabeth I was born. Hampton Court Palace, which was famous for Henry VIII living there. So there's many palaces on the Thames where you can find bits associated with the building itself, like these floor tiles.
That's yeah, really cool. So if you would like give a few tips for potential mudlarkers that really want to try this out or want to get
Yes,
their
so
first permit.
any river in a historic town is bound to have things on the foreshore. So I guess first of all is making sure it's safe to access it and that it is permissible, that you have the permission of the landowner to do so, because this will vary from town to town and country to country what the rules are. So always make sure that you're able to, both legally and physically. And then just keep an eye out for, often things are just on the surface. If for the Thames, the reason why we get so many things turning up is because of that tidal action washes away the mud with every rise and fall. So it's easier in a tidal river to find things because you're constantly getting things washed up and then reburied and then uncovered again. So in a sort of more stagnant river, you might have to dig in the mud a bit more because you won't have that action revealing objects. I've heard another thing that's quite popular in some rivers where you can't actually get into the river is magnet fishing. So you can have a heavy duty magnet on a string, throw that into the river and pull out metal objects. And again, you can find clips of that on YouTube for anyone that's interested.
That's good to know for a link to YouTube that we can. There's a lot of to find on YouTube as well regarding mudlarking. Then
Yes, if you just type in mudlarking, Thames mudlarking, you'll see lots of videos by other fellow mudlarks that have put up really good quality videos exploring different areas of the Thames. And again, with magnet fishing, I've seen a few based in this country and in America. So yes, they've just a basic search will find stuff. And on Facebook and Instagram, if you type in Thames mudlarking, you'll find several groups and pages on there that you can join and see what people find.
hey, thanks for this tip, Caroline. Then we have another donation coming in from Goda. She didn't leave a message, but she at least donated to you for the new metal detector. We also have Ahmed mentioning, thank you, very informative, and good luck with your future finds. And I think that's a thank you and a good luck from all of us. Is there anything else you'd really want to tell us about mudlarking still, Caroline?
I think God defines the reasons why objects end up in the river is quite fascinating as to whether they've been deliberately deposited as a ritual offering or whether they've been lost or deliberately thrown in. Like, for example, in this picture, you can see a gun that's been thrown into the river. So you never know if there's any sort of illegal things that have been deliberately discarded.
Let's
I like that.
could you go back to the previous photo still, Caroline? Because I think the people at home couldn't see this yet.
It's
And I'm
quite
quickly
dark.
checking if we can get the screen on the screen. And yes, I think there we go, indeed.
I
Yes.
zoom in there. So it's a Victorian muff revolver, whatever that is. So quite historic, but who knows, it might have been used in some Victorian crime.
Yeah, it's always nice that you don't know what exactly happened, but it's that you can try to reconstruct history in your mind like this.
Yes. And of course, if it's a modern gun, if it's turned over to police, then they can run ballistics tests and see if it's been involved in any crime.
And then I think you had the next picture as well, or was that something different?
There we go. There we go. So yeah, you can see lots of different things that have been found here. Lots buttons and count coins. That's another thing that gets people very excited. I've never found a coin. I found a 20p and I found a €2 coin, but nothing historical, unfortunately. Some people have found hundreds of coins. I'll just point out this lovely little object here. This is a Roman oil lamp that was found on the Thames. Don't know if everyone can see
Yeah, I
that
think we can
there.
see it. It's a bit tiny. Well, I think it's a tiny oil lamp after all, but it's yeah.
And here is a Bronze Age antler pick that's been found. So again, you never know the age of stuff you're going to find. I'll see if I can find some coins. Here we go.
There are the
Lots of
coins.
coins. And I'd love to find a key. I really love locks and keys. And again, I found keys in my back garden, but they're only about 100 years old. I'd love to find one of these really old, massive keys. Yeah, every book has
Which door it will open the key, right?
of what they really want to find. And some people make art out of the things that they find in the Thames as well, which is very nice.
This is just from random pieces they found while mudlarking, and they just create their own art out of it. That's also really
so
nice way, of
I'll
course.
try and find some of the here's one. So here you can see a piece of art. This has been made out of discarded items that have been found.
But that's really like how do people come up with this? It's really nice. Do you also do this yourself?
I would
or
love
are you just finding your pieces
if I found enough things, I would love to do some art or maybe turn some of the pieces into necklaces. I've got my own necklace on here, which is a fossil. So I would like to make jewellery out of some of the things that I find.
But yeah, that's really that's like in so many ways you can use the objects that you find. Thank you, Caroline, for this. Let's see. I think we're about to wrap up because we loved your story. I think the viewers at home loved your story. I didn't know what mudlarking was about, and now I do know what it's about, and I'm actually excited to maybe try it once.
The great thing is that anyone can do it. Anyone can have an interest in history, get out there, find things, research what they are for yourself, and who knows, it might lead onto a job in the future. I mean, as I went into archaeology, I trained as an archaeologist, and now that's my other job when I'm not doing tours, because I work as a part-time archaeologist.
Yeah, so that's really part of people to yeah. I mean, if you're archaeologist and mudlarking, I think it's like a match made in heaven in this case. I would really like to thank you, Caroline. Thank you for yeah, giving us this short tour about what you found and what mudlarking is all about. Then for the viewers at home, I would also really like to thank you for tuning in to us. I think Caroline also really liked that there were a lot of people interested and had a lot of questions in the chat.
People have found it interesting.
That's indeed, of course, a good thing as well. Then if there are still people that want to donate to Caroline, feel free to do so as well with the pink button below or with the link in the description, or go to withlocals.live. And we'll go to the good cause of a new metal detector for Caroline as well. I don't think we had any new donations in, so feel free to do so. It can also be done after the live stream, but during the live stream is also still good. Let's see. Do I forget anything? No, I hope you all enjoyed the session that you had with Caroline. I know that I did. For tonight, we still have 2 more live streams coming up. One is the virtual journey through Italian proverbs and folk songs with Daniel, who will give us a short introduction into Italian songs and folk songs over there. And then later today, we will stick with the music kind of theme and go to Abbey Road and the Beatles, do an Abbey Road and the Beatles tour with Chloe. So if you're interested in both of them, please tune in tonight again. And if you want a full schedule of all our live streams coming up this week and upcoming weeks, please check out withlocals.tv. And from there on, you can see all the live streams that we are scheduling. Then I would like to thank all of you for joining in, and hopefully see you later today and maybe in a future live stream as well. So enjoy your day and see you.